Hello Year 7, this is a visual literacy revision document that you are going to access in your Power of the Image unit for Term 2. We're just going to go through today a few of the main visual literacy techniques that you may have visited in primary school or they may be new. So we're going to have a look at some techniques and some examples of those techniques. The first technique we're going to talk about today is called salience. Salience refers to the feature in an image that most grabs your attention, so the main part of the image. And an image can be salient for lots of different reasons. It can be the placement. For example, is it in the centre of the image? It can be the colour. Is it a contrasting colour to the background of the image? Is it a dark colour on a white background, for example? Is it the size of the salient image? So it might be really large compared to other parts of the image. Is it the focus? It might be in focus or out of focus. Is it distant from other sections of the image? Or is it a combination of all of these things that make it the main part of the image? So if we think to ourselves, what part of this image is most salient and why, we can immediately see that Shrek is the most salient part of this image. And there's lots of different reasons why that is. So Shrek is in the centre of the image, so we talk about the position. He's also larger than the other characters, so we can talk about size. And another thing we can talk about that makes him the most salient part of this image is the colour contrast. So you have the flames of the background from the dragon, and then you have his costume and green colouring, which is contrast in those flames. So as you can see, parts of the image can be made salient because of lots of different things. The next technique is called a reading path. So a reading path is the path you take through a visual text. The path moves from the most salient to the least salient elements. So the most salient, remember, means the main part of the image, the part of the image that grabs your attention immediately when you first see the image, to the least salient element. So if you look at this, you see that the big mouse on the left-hand side in the circle is the most salient part of this image because it has a border around him. It's contrasted in size compared to the other characters on the page. And it's also contrasted in colour, with the colourful image being contrasted against the white background. So you look down at that image and then you go back up to the words "she worried" all the way there, and then you finish with the other little characters in the bottom right-hand corner of that image. And that is called a reading path. It's where your eyes travel to when you try and take in a whole image. The next technique is called vectors. A vector is a line that leads your eye from one element to another. A vector may be a visible line or an invisible one. It can be created by such thing as a gaze. So if it's a character or a person in the image and they are looking at a different part of the image, then the vector is the line from their eyesight to the other part of the image that they're looking at. It can be created by pointing fingers or an extended arm. In this image, the vector is the jetty, the wooden plank that leads from the bottom of the image all the way through to the background, the clouds on the horizon. So you can see that your eyesight goes from that right at the front of that image and follows that path down. That's the vector. The next technique is called framing. Elements in a layout can be disconnected and marked off from each other or connected. If elements are cut off from one another, they are strongly framed. And I want you to think back to that image we just saw when we were talking about reading paths, where the mouse character was in the circle. It was framed by that circle. Framing is often used to put emphasis on the focus point of the image. So that mouse character was the most salient part of that image, and therefore the frame of the circle was emphasizing that focus. Another example of nature is here with the beautiful window frame capturing the view out of that window. So the salient image is the view and the framing is the literal window frame. The next techniques are lighting and colour. Lighting creates mood in images. So if an image is really bright and you can see everything, it's generally a hopeful image, an inspirational image, or a happy image. Whereas if an image is created with lots of shadows, it can suggest fear or despair and sadness. And as we know, colour can be very symbolic. I'll just give you a moment now to read through some of the symbols of some of these colours. Maybe having a look at your favourite colour. The next technique is called foreground. So that's the bottom of the page. The boat in this image is at the bottom of the page, therefore it's in the foreground. Normally we see that the foreground is in front of some other things. So the boat here is in front of the ocean, which is in the background. Okay, and you see the background is at the top of the page. So the mountains seem far away and are towards the top of the image. They are in the background. That concludes our visual techniques revision document. You can watch this as many times as you like, Year 7, especially as you're starting to move towards different activities, for example, annotating advertisements later on.